A great conversation with Mike Rashid King. I am so proud of Mike. He has an Amazon bestseller out right now, The Divine Quintessence. Mike and I share this Paitian energy. I just resonate with Brother Mike so much. I really enjoyed our conversation. When we met up for this conversation, we got right into it. And so I had to move things around. But I need you to comment and let us know if you're going to get the Divine Quintessence. There's a link in the description right now. Like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell because I'm a one-man organization. That's a good way to let you know when a new podcast is going to drop. I got a lot of them in the archive and they are coming soon. Also, follow on social media, Instagram, Gray Transforms, or my personal Instagram is Great PhD, GRAYT PhD. Mike Rashid on Instagram as well. Mike Rashid. Let's get to it.
There's 7 billion people in the world. Not everyone's going to get this.
Great morning, great afternoon, great evening, wherever this conversation finds you. I am Travis Gray. This is Gray Transforms. And today we are blessed to be transforming with another great guest. This is Mike Rashid. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I met Mike outside of the 19 Keys and Dame Dash event in Oakland a couple of years ago. I don't know how long ago. And there was just this real Paitian energy that I felt, I resonated with, I responded to. So on that day, I was like, oh man, you should be on the podcast. So I'm glad that we're finally getting a chance to do this. So there's some like common interests that I have seen in your profile and everything that you've put out there. I've resonated with like combat sports. I'm the biggest mixed martial arts fan. I know that you were a 2-time Golden Gloves boxing champion. That is awesome.
Yes,
I
sir.
love physical fitness, everything that is the maybe spiritual investment, but the investment of body, mind, soul. That is transpersonal psychology, is the investment of those assets, body, mind, soul, to be whole. And through those experiences, you've also been open about being incarcerated. When I was growing up, I had like a few cycles of being in and out of jail twice a year. So I had this troubled upbringing, ankle bracelet, all kinds of things. And so I saw a lot of this mirroring in your experience. What has it been like for you to go from all of those experiences to where you are today?
Yes, man. Well, first of all, thank you for the intro and thanks for having me on. It's just my life. My life has never been boring, right? I'm a very inquisitive person. My brain never shuts off, so I'm always thinking about what's next. So, I've gotten myself into some trouble in the past. Never anything that I wasn't able to fix and correct, apologize and atone for. I think that's huge. I'm one of those people that don't like when people apologize.
People
Just
say
don't
I'm
mess up.
sorry way too much.
It means nothing.
Way too much.
Stop being sorry. Stop messing up. All right, if you do atone, right? Listen, we live in a world in which people have this concept of what they think God is, right? And Lord, please forgive me. Lord, please forgive me. Lord, please forgive me, right? And they're talking to, in their mind, an entity that they've never really met, that they've never sat in council with, right? When they may violate their friend, their brother, their cousin, their wives, or whatever, and may barely squeeze an apology out. You understand? When you should be very humble to that person that you violated, atoning, making sure y'all good, taking that scale and tipping it back over to good as much as you can, and then still do more. But we don't live like that, right? We've been so far removed and separated from our divine nature that it's sickening. So when I was incarcerated, I've been in and out a few times. We call it college. Been to college a few times. And listen, the last time, obviously I was older and, I was all the way out of those old ways, but it was still some outstanding issues that I had to deal with. I just accepted it. I'm like, I'm supposed to be here. It is what it is, and it was an incredible experience because a few things. One thing, I had time, right? So I had time to work on projects that I wasn't working on out in the streets because I was always moving around. So in regards to like my business, like the digital side of my business, I started all of that incarcerated, right? And I was sending everything out. They put it together, and I was making good money from inside. So I learned how to really maximize my time. And I always use this term. I learned how to make life my bitch. You know, I'm doing this time. This time ain't doing. I'm gonna do what I need to do. This is mine, right? And it goes into this slogan that I always say, like, only good things happen to me. That's all I allow. So you can lay out all of the events of my life. Somebody can be like, oh, well, what about that? What about that? Which they may see as negative. I'm like, no, I'm gonna show them how this is great. I'm gonna show you how I extracted as much benefit out of that as possible, because that's what I do. In that regards, I'm a bully. In that regards, I'm a control freak. I control my life, right? I don't allow, look, if I make a wrong turn or decision that's not the best, I fix it. I learn, I learn from it and I capitalize off of it. That's just who I am. So all of these events in my life been very eventful, very colorful, but it made me who I am. And it started when I was young at things that had nothing to do with me, with my parents and stuff like that. I was tossed into like the belly of the beast, born into it. And even that was incredible experiences. It made me rich with experience. It made me rich with context, right? There's a lot of people that I could sit and counsel with and, well, okay, well, maybe you want to think about this because I've been in certain situations. Whereas, I have friends that I love dearly that's never been through anything. I think that's the most ideal life, right? However, they can't really sit and counsel with somebody that's dealing with XYZ. And me, I don't live for myself. I live for first my family, my friends, and it goes out from there. People that's invested in me. So that's just how I'm designed. There's nothing I do for me.
Yeah.
You know,
I
I'm
I
for
love
this.
that. You're making all of your experiences make sense. That is my one of my philosophies for life is making it make sense. I love that the character that you have built through the adversity of your experience is important, and it allows you to be relatable to those that need it most.
Right.
Those that need it most need somebody that can relate through their own experience of adversity. I'm a mental health professional, and I've been in workplaces with other counselors that haven't had too much adversity of relatable experience with the clients, and it's hard for them to connect. Their heart is in a good place. They want to heal, they want to help and support and serve in the best way that they can. But it's tough to do if you aren't if you haven't experienced the adversity. And it's so beautiful, the kind of character that is built from that. Something that I've liked from you is that I heard you I heard you define the meaning for your last name, Rashid, well, the Archangel Michael. But I've heard you speak about Rashid, wisdom, integrity. And that's such a beautiful thing that we can do. We can participate in the development of our own character.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Rashid is my middle name and it means rightly guided path. So I am a Muslim, and in Islam, every male, well, everyone really has carry a name of Allah, of God. So Allah, just for those who don't know, means one God, right? It's one God. There is no footnotes in any divine text, any religious text for any book that describes God. It's not one, right? So the notion that people have of God is somebody's interpretation that they're running with. Now, in Islam, there's 99 attributes to Allah, to God. And Rashid, all of our names, my name is Michael Abdul Rashid. ABD means slave of Allah, of God, right? So, and then you have a particular attribute. My attribute is the rightly guided path. So, and every name is something that's attributed to God. So, my knowledge of God is here, it's right here. You understand? I don't look outward, I look inward. Because everything in my life, whether it have been good or bad, come from here, right? Generate everything that I dealt with. We even us as human beings, we create ourselves. People don't realize that. Like, our parents give us the raw materials. But from there, we're turning on genes and we're expressing these things ourselves. There's no scientists inside our mother's belly putting things together, right? they help us by feeding us when we're little, right? But we're literally creating ourselves. We get a cut. Our subconscious mind, which controls most of everything, all the functionalities in our body, the nervous system, everything starts going to work without us even being conscious of it, with our executive brain at least. But we do everything, right? So we should study self. That's why I did that lecture series. I got one more tomorrow called Civilization of Self, right? Because we have to master self, we have to conquer self, we have to civilize self. And that way we can start moving out into the world with impact and really be impactful, good or bad, whatever people want to do, because there's really no good or bad, because everything is perspective. I was studying truth one day, and I was like, of course there's objective truths, but there's not. Everything is subjective to a degree of like where you're from, your level of understanding, what language you speak, your culture. You understand what I'm saying? So everything, and listen, that's something that we all gotta, a mature person gotta be like, all right, that's true. You're gonna see it your way. And I can't force you. When we start forcing people to see things our way, that's when you have inquisitions and papal bulls and burning people alive because they're heretics. You know what I'm saying? So these are things that we probably want to avoid. So, you know, it's interesting that we're talking about, enlightenment and with your field of study. And I didn't know that there was an area of academia that really sat with that, That's real fascinating to me.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're saying this is subjective, there is not objective truth. You studied truth. It's funny. It reminded me of this conversation that I had with a young scholar in this field. And this young scholar, he's kind of fresh to the field, and I've been involved in this field for a decade now. And so I had this conversation with him, and he's telling me I have an important question for you, and this is the most important question, the most valuable question, and I already know the answer, and I want to know if you know the answer. And like already that setup is like real crazy. He said, is morality objective or subjective? He sets it up. He already knows the right answer, and he's testing you. Will you get the right answer? Very adamant about my argument with him is that morality is subjective, that truth, all of these things. You saw him in agreement with you, but he was so sure of himself that there is objective morality that is true for everyone. And I don't see how that God has such a indifference to the workings of human life. People are living on the street right now. Somebody is dying, suffering right now. God has such an indifference to things like this. And so how can one say that truth is objective if there's so much wrong that is done, kind of destined by a universal intelligence?
Wrong or just how things are. Like, why should a child be born into a family that sexually abuses them? Why should a person be born with Down syndrome? Why should a person be born missing limbs, right? So people got to really like divorce themselves from these traditional ideas and notions, because if we line everything up, it just falls apart. It doesn't make any sense, right? So I don't know. I'm typically a very positive person, right? But when I look at the big scheme of things and like history and our current trajectory right now, it doesn't look good for our civilization. But maybe that is a good thing, because maybe we need a wipe out, right? A great filter, and for things to start over. And here's the beautiful thing about it. People will get back to technology and knowledge and so on and so forth, but maybe there'll be going down a different road. Maybe it will be a little bit more spiritually grounded, more in alignment with, with God, with the law. To be a Muslim means to submit to the will of Allah, right? That's submitting to nature, to the natural flow of things. One of my favorite books is Tao Te Ching, right, by Lao Tzu. And the Tao
There.
is all about, there you go. Yeah, right there.
Right there.
The Tao is all about the way. You know that, right? It's not trying so hard. It's the way. You have water in the glass breaks. It's okay. It's going to like fall to where it's supposed to go, and it's going to be fine right there. So if we can really embody, like, first of all, understand that, study that, and embody that, life would be so easy. It'd be so great. I think life is easy.
That's what we struggle with as humans, is that we always need to limit ethereal entity into a thing, like the Tao Te Ching that you just mentioned. The Tao Te Ching says that all of the words that try to name the thing is not the name of the thing, and it is also everything else. And so we were getting into, I love how your mind works, because as we started this conversation, you were just right into a conversation, and that's perfect. That's a great way to do it. And we were speaking about enlightenment and things like this, and I was going to reflect to you that my thoughts are that so to answer one of your questions previously, my thoughts are that God's will is where nothing meets something. So where thing meets nothing, there is no such thing as nothing. Maybe you mentioned that they call it dark matter. Well, there's still a thing and a space, and that space is also a thing to speak about, to articulate, which is a space. And so it's where thing meets nothing. It's what we forget when we are, you spoke about like the humble service, the humble interaction with others. The humility for me has evolved over time, and it's evolved to recognizing that there's an untold story in each and every person. And so I respect that untold story, that unspoken story, and the God's will is happening in the aura of these people, and we are forgetting to see that. When we look at people, we're forgetting to see each other as emanations of God. We're forgetting to see where the nothing around a person meets, where the nothing space around you, Mike, is met. There, that is where God is doing something miraculous, and that is why we have a common sight in some way. Like we both see that this is a black shirt. The reason we both see that this is a black shirt is because of God's will in making this a part of the kind of the program that we are all seeing the world through. And it's such a beautiful thing, but we struggle. That's the Buddhist. We're so attached to trying to put a thing into a limited box.
Yeah. Well, it's a reason for that. I think that's necessary to a degree, because we have to be able to articulate things. All right, here's a beautiful thing about humans, right? This is why we beat out Homo sapiens sapien. We were not the biggest, strongest human species, right? But we had abilities that they didn't have. Was it habilis? I forgot who that we kind of coexist with, but we had just this robust cerebral cortex, and we had the power to be able to imagine things, right? So for instance, a red light is not a natural thing, right? It's an abstract concept that we agree upon so that we can have order, right? We can still keep going, but we all agree that that's red, we should stop here. And that makes, I mean, if you think about cars, it's incredible that people are not just crashing into each other every day.
Right.
It's so it goes from something that simple to something as complex as a airplane, following all of the instructions for that to fly properly. 300 people at a time can travel at 500 miles an hour without dying, right? For the most part. So we have to be able to quantify ideas, right? And call it something so that we can maneuver properly and we can all have order. There's a lot of nuance to that,
Yeah.
right?
You said that you're Muslim, and I'm interested in what is the intersection for you between, or the distinction, the intersection between religion and spirituality for you?
Not, these are both just words to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get into some people will say, well, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fine. Whatever it is, I don't care what you call yourself. You're trying to be a better person. I'm with that, right? What I love about the religion that I adhere to in particularly is this: rules.
Mm-hmm.
Rules. We honor rules, right? So if you really look at like the origins of the obedience authority model religions, which is Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, they all come from one source, and that's the Old Testament. Now, the rules that one would see in Islam is in the Old Testament. However, if one adheres to Christianity, it seems like there's no rules, because They can eat pork. Women don't have to adhere to modesty. You pray when you pray. But the man that we know is Jesus. He prayed 5 times a day plus. They talk about he just left to pray again. He's always praying, and he prayed by making salah, by submitting his head down. Right? They forbade pork. Right? All of the things that you see in Islam. Right? So culturally, Islam is like the purest form of religion because it's all one religion, essentially. It's just that we all have different names for things because we live in different places, right? You know, they started out with Aramaic, and then the Greeks and then the Romans kind of like got their thing and put their twist to it. And now we got it in English from one of the kings of England, translated it from Greek. But then you have Islam. All of these teachings came from the same area, Palestine, right? And Africa, because people don't realize this, but all right, so the Old Testament was given by Moses and all of these prophets and scholars from way back then that were considered Israelites or Jews. They got it from when they came from out of Egypt, right? That's when Moses gave the 10 Commandments, right? He says it's from God. Who's God? That particular God name was Ma'at, was a woman. And she has 42 laws. It's called 42 Laws of Ma'at. The first 10 is what we know as the 10 Commandments. You understand? So, there was a lot of learning. I mean, you got to think that was Kemet, which we know as Egypt. Mali, Timbuktu was the hub of wisdom, was the Harvards, the Oxfords of that day and age. So all of that wisdom came, and people bring it to their people. You call it something different. It's fine. Knowledge is not owned by anybody. It just is. Just like if you look at law of thermodynamics, we can look at physics. Energy cannot be created. Second law, I'm sorry. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It always have been here, always will be here. This is all energy. We all energy. Knowledge, information, that's energy as well. We didn't create this, right? There's times I write a lot that I've worked on some stuff. Then I'll look at a lecture of one of my ministers, some old. I'm like, it seemed like I studied that lecture before I wrote this, right? Because we don't come up with this stuff. It's already here. It just get revealed to us. We realize, we actualize it, we find it, so on and so forth. But there's nothing new under the sun. That's such a valid statement. So yeah, everything is already here. Yeah. And here's another thing that's freaky to think about. Everything that has ever existed, still here. Everything that there is to come is here. Like everything is here now in different forms, which is fascinating. So yeah.
You don't believe in like an original thought, an original input into the system that exists.
Let me tell you how uncanny it is that I don't believe in that. I thought I came up with this concept of metaphysical bank. My friend right here, I was telling her about it. I sent her my notes. And before I sent her the notes, she just Googled it, and that concept existed. It was pretty much in alignment with what I came up with, right? I thought I came up with that. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that, right? So yeah, I'm pretty convinced that it's nothing new.
Well, I think that the originality still comes from your unique putting that together, your unique combination of words and like your story, your narrative, your entity-ness will never, this is the one time that it exists in the world. So there's still like an originality. I think that what you're speaking to is near impossible to add something of original thought into this system. I think that it is possible when we look at esoteric teachings like Hermeticism. The original thing is possible to put in there, but it is so difficult. The masters are the ones that are able to add something of new value, like the goats. Like there's never another Mayweather, right? Like the Floyd Mayweather is the best. There's never another 50 fights. So there's something original added in his little way, his little corner of the world.
I got another one. So when I finished my book, I finished it last year, and it's called The Divine Quintessence. I I finished that last year, and I was on a flight from Florida to here. I get on YouTube and I see this Gnostic. I started going down the rabbit hole. You would think that I studied Gnosticism to write this book. I never even heard the term before. So that's just confirmation that to me, it's all here. It's all here. It's interesting that sometimes you cannot be connected to or have knowledge or be privy to that particular piece of information and it'll sprout out of you. I think that's incredible. But I've experienced that more than one time. So, but yeah, I do understand what you're saying. The style, the fashion of things, right? Because let's talk about Islam, right? So Islam does not belong to anyone. It's just the way of life. It's just a way submission to the will of God, right? And we all agree that to be of a godly nature or divine is like just the highest essence of what we do agree is morality, love, empathy, patience, service to others, so on and so forth. So with that being said, my style of Islam is different because it came to a different people. It came to Black people in America at a time that we really needed a savior. We currently suffer collectively from spiritual death. We're zombies, right? And we need somebody to come in with the chakras and inject life in us, right? Islam was the capsule because all we knew at that point from our programming was religion, right? And we only knew Christianity from our slaveholders, right? So it needed to be brought with us in a form of a religion, dressed up, so on and so forth, right? Which is a strategy, right? It doesn't matter what the religion is. It does to an extent, but it's all strategy, right? To effectively communicate to dead people that need to hear this. And that is my faction, if you will, of Islam, right? But that's an example of what you're saying. Like, yeah, the style of things are different. That's unique. And there's a lot of people in the Muslim world that take issue with us because we don't adhere to certain traditional cultural things that some do.
Yeah,
What's it really about though? It's like, what is it really about?
yeah.
You want me to be like you, or you want me to be in alignment with Allah, with God, right? Whatever you want doesn't matter. This is what I'm doing with it. So, it's really interesting, but
This idea of whether an original style or something could be inputted is like I'm trying to step away from the definitiveness of it is already this limited thing. That there's always an expanded quality. There's always a quality of expansion ongoingly in the world as well. God is everything through all of our limited perspectives, right? It's the infinite mind expressed through our many limited facets. And so there's an inclusion of the idea that originality can be inputted. Are you familiar with this man named Ken Wilber?
no, sir.
Okay, that's like he's been called the Einstein of consciousness, Ken Wilber. So he has like an integral theory. He has one book called A Theory of Everything. But he has some critics, some academic critics that would criticize his approach as being one path. But there are many rivers that lead to the same ocean. But he's saying, oh, this is the path, very much like a religion. But he is informed by many religious views. He's informed by these things and then has kind of synthesized his own way of approaching it, his own strategy. I like how you're describing religion as a strategy for your alignment in relationship to Allah. The criticism of Ken Wilber's work is often this thing of like, well, it's not recognizing that there are the many rivers. Like what enlightenment looks like for you and a Muslim person living in the Middle East right now, what those two differences in enlightenment, those distinctions rather, is they're distinct, they are different. I like that you are participating in it all. So that's really important. That I think that you're right. You spoke about it in the Black culture, but also the just in general the world today, maybe always, we have been spiritually malnourished. And maybe we're always thirsty for spirituality. We're always thirsty for a strategy of how I can secure my alignment in relation to God, and how we're always thirsty for that. And so we picked up some great traditions along the way, but then thousands of years have gone past, and not very few new strategies have gotten traction. But what you are doing is a part of like what comes from the criticism of Ken Wilber's work, is this: you're participating in it. I like that you're identifying as God, a deity. That that's actually everything to me. I think this right here, being a deity is the way. Being a deity is the way. Jesus showed us, I am the Son of God. Muhammad he said, God sang to me, Allah sang to me, through me is the Quran. And in Buddhism, it's all an interconnected game. It's an interconnected strategic affair that we are experiencing in the world, being the author of your narrative and articulation of all that. So maybe it's the originality of your style, your authentic, unique style, for sure. And I think that that's so powerful. A part of your profile was, you said kingmaker. What does that mean to you, to help another person, maybe a man or just another person in general, become a king or become a god, a deity? What does that mean to you?
Yes, sir. So you can't see, but there's a few people in here. But there's a gentleman right here. He's in training right now as we speak. I work for him to help develop him into a king. Okay. And then from there, he's going to go off and do whatever he finds is the next level of his masculine evolution in this world. So, and I have a lot of people in that position that I serve and helping them get out of their own way to walk into their true divinity, right? Because you mentioned Jesus saying, I'm the Son of God. He also said, I'm a God and you're a God. They came to him and said, I want to do miracles like you. He said, my guy, once you realize who you are and what you are, your miracles is going to shit on mine, right? And I tell people the same thing. I aspire to be like you, bro. Be better than me. You can. You're younger than me. You could start now. You understand? So I'm walking in the same footsteps of the one Yeshua ben Yusuf. That was his real name. So, and he was a man that actualized his divinity. Okay. The reason that they wanted him dead was because he didn't adhere to how they taught. Like, nah, I'm not with that. Oh, you think you're a God? He says, you are all gods, right? He put it on people. And it's like, how is that a bad thing, telling people that they're great? But that was considered bad. And it's still considered bad in this society now, right? Who are you? How can you say? So, and I have people, Muslims that, we have our back and forth, and no one's allowed. That's haram. Show me scripture that says that we're not gods. Because there's a lot of, first of all, everything's translated, for one. For two, we're talking about books 3,000, 2,000 years ago. How did they talk? Was it metaphorical? Was it allegorical? Right? No one's taking these things into consideration. So, however, something that is very consistent, it looks like God is a man to me in the beginning, against the void, so on and so forth. We made man in our image. We made man in our image. Y'all not going to question that? Y'all just going to let that go. And our image. We're men, right? This is what we are. So this is what God looks like. Show me something else. Show me something mystical. You understand? And they say, well, the spirit of God, the spirit, they pick up on these like little semantic things. Okay, but you could talk about my spirit. I could talk about my spirit, right? That doesn't mean I'm a ghost, right? So me proclaiming my godhood is not original to me. I was taught that. I was taught that, but over time through my life, it made sense to me more and more as I got older. As I cleared my mind more and further divorced myself from the programming that I had been programmed with. I had two programs. I got this godly program and I have this worldly program. But as the worldly program gets debugged more and more and more, this is so evident over here. It's so evident, right? And I go down rabbit holes. See, my whole thing, Brother Travis, is this. I'll come into some information or some ideas or thoughts. I'll write it out, but I research to see if this aligns with things that people can go out there and find on their own, study, right? And it always does. So I'm all about making things practical. Yeah. The things that I talk about is a practical. The Divine Quintessence, the book, I call it, this is going to ruffle a lot of feathers when everything comes out, but it's a sacred text for a religion or a way of life called the infinite God body, right? Because listen, everybody's tapped into books that are thousands of years old. What about something current right now? Yeah. Straight communication, straight tactics on things that's going to give you a better life. Because that's what this is all about. Me adhering to the rules of my religion of Islam, it gives me a better life. It keeps me out of trouble. It keeps my head clear, so on and so forth. So what I did was I put together a whole way of life that I adhere to. I'm just spelling it out real plain English, right? And that's something that I want to put out as well at some point, because it's a book as well. It's done. It was done before the first one. So yeah, and it's like you said, it's a different original style. But the essence of it ain't, because I went and found a lot of what I love about AI is that I can find things in scripture that I probably wouldn't find. Right. So I found all of the references of working out in scripture and why it's important to have a strong body. I found things in Eastern Asian religions or way of lives, Christianity, Islam, so on and so forth, right? So that's just one part of it. And from my perspective, that's the origin of it, is you training, is working out. Because so much comes from that, right? So much is developed from that. So much confidence, so much love and self-care, right? And I always say this, but we can only love others to the degree in which we love ourselves. And that's a lot of love when you're working out every day consistently, avoiding greasy foods or processed foods or junk foods and limiting what you eat only to what you need and so on and so forth. That's a lot of love. And then take it a step further when it comes to eating. See, these things sound like, oh, it's just workout stuff, but this is very spiritual. When I tell people, because I'm big on fasting, right? When you can control and not eat, right? That's the gateway, the most effective gateway to self-mastery, when you can master food. Well, why would you say that, Mike? Well, let's look at it. Most people in America are overweight. Not 51%, but 70-something percent. That's almost everybody, right? And the number one killer of people is food, right? That's the gun. The bullets are three different bullets. Diabetes, type 2, heart disease, and cancers from different types of metabolic damage and metabolic diseases. So food is our biggest adversary. Master that, we got everything else. Everything else is easy. And food is very hard to master. It's very hard. I told my son today, we were driving, we were having a real conversation. And I told him, I said, I withdrew from the metaphysical bank today by eating a handful of Cheez-Its. I did. I know I was supposed to eat that. It's not even food. I don't even know what it is. But it called me. It was like a crackhead. I gotta get it. Got me a handful. You know what I mean? So that is something right there. And I spoke it out to him and I said it to him so that it's official, is out there, so it'll be easier for me to avoid that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, your deposits into that metaphysical bank, they're also incurring interest. There's compounding interest involved in your deposits in that metaphysical bank, and you can see it in people. You can see the realization is expressed through them. It is the actualizing quality of a person can be seen shining forth in that person. And that maybe is that's what I spoke to in the beginning of our conversation. Of I recognized this Paishin quality. That's the words that I pointed at for it. But it was a resonance of energy. I saw the mirror in this brilliant shining forth way. When you mentioned that the book was called The Divine divine quintessence, I at first, and then you said the Q. At first, I thought about Kima Russo, and I was like, wow, Kima is such a divine embodiment of body, mind, and soul. She's been on your show, and I think that's been really cool. So when you are speaking about the divine quintessence, it is strategic spirituality made practical here and now, not 2,000 years ago and not 1,000 years ago, but here and now, strategic spirituality made practical, made real, made tangible in a way that anybody can apply to their lives today.
100%. I love how you worded that. That was brilliant. But it's strategic spirituality. And we have to be strategic because we have to be effective. So it's like, so you and I, we're having a very refreshing conversation, in my opinion. But if there were other people involved, I would have to ask you, all right, so for instance, what you have your PhD in. I'm like, well, how does that help the average man? We'd have to go there. We would have to, you know, because here's the thing, when it comes to understanding information and mastering information, because knowledge is just information. It's not very important, right? We apply wisdom to bring forth understanding. And we should be able to explain what it is that we're trying to retain in a way that a child can understand it. You know, one thing I tell my mentees and my students is this: when it comes to studying, I'm big on studying, slow down. Well, I read 3 books a month. It's too much. You don't remember none of that information. Just read one. But if you study the way I'm going to prescribe, you're not even going to get through one a month, right? Because look, I'm a little bit crazy. When you're sitting and reading, be able to define every word that you're reading. And you know what the means? No. Okay. Master those words. That way you extract all of the juice out of it. You squeezing that lemon dry. And that's what we should be doing with information. So I can't read fast. I just don't remember anything. I have to read in chunks. I have to write stuff down. And I sit with pages for days, drawing understanding, right? Looking up words, right? We have these brains, these powerful brains that we can just, what is this? Google. And people don't use it.
Don't use it.
No one should ever ask anybody, well, what does this mean? Phone out. You know what I mean? So anyway, yeah, it's just interesting. But I wanted to ask you about your field of expertise. How did you get into that and why?
Yeah, transpersonal psychology. At first, I was interested in the exceptional human experience that a person has on the other end of a psychedelic experience. At first, I was really interested in the psychedelic catalyst of that, how one person can be one way and then on the other side become another way, be transformed on the other side.
You understand why and how that works?
Do I understand why and how that works?
Yes. For that transformative experience that they may experience from a psychedelic journey.
Yeah, the way that I articulate it is that there is a homeostatic disruption, and this is why integration is so important, because there's the homeostatic disruption, and then the integration is synthesizing that experience back into a practical way. The most valuable thing for me has always been in psychedelic experience, it has always been, what can I pull from that experience into my actual lived life? Unfortunately, especially younger people, have a tendency to fetishize the substance and forget that the experience is actually what you are after. You are after the experience of the thing. So what insights did you gain that are actually operating in a real way in your life? So I was originally interested in that, but then that has matured over time, and it's always fascinating. There's so many ways that people can be vastly transformed from a 15-minute meditation. So it doesn't require the fetishizing of the substance, but those are particular thematic homeostatic disruptions that are valuable for sure. But there's the integration component, the synthesis component is really where the mastery and transformation happen.
Yeah. That's interesting. I got curious about psychedelics in 2020, and I went on an odyssey of research, and I tried it, and I had a really transformative experience with lysergic acid. Right, it was on a 15-hour odyssey, if you will, and it helped me a lot. Right, I faced a couple of the things that were pressing, the outstanding issues on my heart and on my mind. They became very big and obvious, and to me, easy to deal with. So it breaks you down and it puts your demons or your monsters in front of you, and you either be a coward and go like this, or you run at them and deal with them. And I ran at them and dealt with mine, and it was just a wonderful experience. And then, like for like 3 months, like my business partner Sean, he was like, "Dang, you're so positive," and 'cause I'm really, my personality is not bright and bubbly. It's dark and just chill, right? Real quiet. But it made me, well, let's go back to the research. I did a lot of research on it, right? So I understood why they were creating it or synthesizing it and testing it in therapeutic settings. And it was for people who had dealt with depression, anxiety, PTSD, so on and so forth, addictions. And if, say, for instance, a person's antidepressants aren't working, they would do a 2-day, a therapeutic, they would take it like LSD in a therapeutic setting, which would be 2 days of like big amounts with the therapist. And the therapist would talk them through and work them through things. And they wouldn't need any prescriptions, any medication for like 6 months, which is interesting. Now, I wasn't depressed, but it made me positive for months. You know what I'm saying? But the better thing out of that than that was me, you know, just getting more aligned with my higher self, you know, being radically honest, regardless. Because I thought I was honest back then, but I wasn't radically honest, right? And it just makes life so much easier. That was one of the biggest takeaways that I got from that.
Yeah. Some of the founders of transpersonal psychology were in these early LSD studies with Albert Hoffman, who was the original synthesizer of LSD. Two co-founders of my university that I got my PhD in, and one of them, his name is James Fadiman. And James Fadiman is like the microdosing guy. He's really put microdosing kind of on the map. He recently published a book on microdosing. The fascinating thing, the metaphysical fascinating thing of this is that LSD, a microdose of LSD, 1 microgram, has enough molecules to feed every cell in your body. So every cell in your body is experiencing a a little unique entity, a unique firing as a result of that LSD experience. So it's really cool. I've had bad experiences with LSD, honestly. I've had good experiences with mushrooms. I've had bad experiences with mushrooms too. LSD, when coupled with MDMA, I've had phenomenal. It's hard to have a bad time on MDMA, but I've had some phenomenal experiences. But ultimately, it's not the substance that is important to me now as a mature, just in my maturity. It's not the substances. I wouldn't want the audience even to think that the substance is so important, but it's the wisdom, the insight, what you can make practical from that experience, the challenge, or the facing your demons, like you just said, the chaos of that experience, that substance interacting with your body's chemistry brought up the chaos that you needed to face. And that's the homeostatic disruption. Now, the synthesis of that is work that happens beyond just that experience. 15 hours, it could be, a great time or not a great time or whatever it is. And then afterwards is a great deal of the time to integrate, to synthesize all of that experience. I really love, I recite this a lot from the Kabbalion, is the words of wisdom are heard by the ears of understanding. So you must have the ears of understanding to receive the words of wisdom. They are not received unless you have the ears of understanding. So there are many people that could watch this conversation with us, and what are they talking about? Godhood and the quintessential. What they're making new religions, but why are they doing all of that? well, they are missing the ears of understanding in this conversation to receive the wisdom, the bits of wisdom that are here. And I think that that is how these days, like that's how a book like yours or this strategic spirituality, a new strategic spirituality like the Q, the quintessential, the quintessence, how that gains traction is by having enough ears of understanding that get the opportunity to receive that. So I love what you're doing in the sacred society and all of the community that you're growing around you, myself being a part of that included. And I can't wait to read this book. It's going to be awesome. This idea, like people can be so inspired by your being in this, but this idea that you can, that you our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. Your permission is giving others permission. Your permission to you by being in your godhood is giving others permission to do the same. And you're employing yourself to that service of others to make them kings and deities and really make that. And I believe that it's not so outside of reach to be the deity, to deify, to experience the divinity expressed through us is not outside of reach. It can be touched, it can be experienced through mastery of self, through the constitution that we build that we are going to employ and live in our lives.
You're absolutely correct. You know, people look to be a god. All right, so I like horror movies, right? And there's a movie called Nosferatu. It's a vampire movie, and it's like the first one was like in the early 1900s. They did a few of them. And the main guy, his name is Count Orlok, and he's like this real masculine, vampire or whatever. But the new version of it is so good. It's so well done. It's like well, it seemed like, oh, maybe vampires do exist, right? Because it's like you kind of understand this guy a little bit more, right? And when I watched, I was like, he's a god. He's a god. You can't really tell me he's a bad guy because he's doing what's right for him. You understand? Because it's actually a love story. It's really interesting. But he was extremely wise, extremely powerful. Like when he spoke to people, the reverence in his communication was just inspiring. I'm like, damn, I got smart. You understand? Just like a Thanos. How smart is he? You understand? You can't necessarily say he's a bad guy, right? He has a mission, and he's figured out in his mind what's right for him to save the universe or galaxy or whatever, right? So that's when we get to that subjectivity of truth and of morality. You know, who am I to tell you what's right for you? I can't do that. So all I could do is give an example, and that's what I'm doing with the book. And the book is not about me at all. I mentioned myself in the very beginning only, just to preface, just to give a little bit of context that I'm just not some guy from off the street just saying some whatever. Because a lot of times people won't take you serious unless you have been through the rigors of academia, which I totally respect, or the rigors of life, which I've done. I'm a scholar in life. I've figured it out. I've literally figured it out, right? And what I mean by that is I live the life that I want to live. Employ people. Yeah, I could create a business like that. It's going to work, right? I could do what I want to do. And this is something that we all aspire for in life, or whatever people aspire for. This is something that most people aspire for. And I did it. I figured it out. So that's why only reason I mentioned myself in the very beginning. But after that, we get to work. We go to work, right? And it's a dense book. Now, my prediction of this book is that I think people are going to buy it because they like me, but I think it's going to be a little bit heavy for a lot of people, right? I think people like yourself is going to enjoy it because it's very dense. This is my first time doing a book for the public. Like I write a lot, but this is my first time doing a book, and I went overboard on the research. But I'm doing that to compensate for the fact that I do not have a degree behind my name. So, and I want to be taken serious. And I have friends in academia. I have physicist friends that I respect, and I shoot things by them all the time, and they give me the nod.
You don't need the pieces of paper. You are a proper scholar, and so you did the research to back what you're putting out there. I think that that's great.
Correct.
Even you are publishing this book through Billy Carson. You're publishing it through his Forbidden Knowledge publication. he is a scholar, and he is a deity. Even like, man, we would want, or I would want to speak for myself. I would want more good intentioned individuals in the world. And when I say individual, I mean not fragmented, not fractured, people that are actualized and whole. And that's why I speak to guests like yourself, like that. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, is because you are an actualizing individual. You're actualized and actualizing, and that gives you it's a beautiful thing that you have the ability to start a business, create a new product. I love that you are a Muslim and participating in Ramadan and fasting, and so you created a product very mindfully to curate that experience so that you can get all of the ketogenic benefits of, yeah, that right there. So you can get all the ketogenic benefits of fasting without the loss in musculature. And so you're just thinking it's very practical, but it's very spiritual, just like exercise. Man, I have a problem with when I come across a teacher of spiritual principle and they are unhealthy, their physical vessel is not in, it's not tuned. I'm confused.
So
I'm baffled.
there's a degree of credibility that they lose. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because you don't love yourself enough to exercise. It's interesting though, but I guess if you just don't do it, it's hard to get to it. Now, I have a buddy who I really like this guy, real smart guy. He's a seeker. He's always, showing me different articles and so on and so forth. So, but he's one of those people that you do all the research, peptides, do this, do that, hydrogen water, whatever, but he don't work out. And I said, bro, why don't you just work out? Well, just go to the gym, just work out. Just work out. Why haven't you done that? You know, because look, that's the hardest thing to do, you know, to get up, go do something that you don't typically do. You may not know what you're doing yet. You're not going to see any results that fast. You're around all these people that's in shape. It's an uphill battle, but conquer that hill. Conquer that fucking hill because you got one body. And I'm big on this with the men. It's like, look, you got one shot at this. Axe it out at some point in your life. All men should go through experience what it is to be a beast at something. It don't have to be weights, but something. Really max out your masculinity. Because why not? You have it. You have a range of it. There's a range of it. Right. Let's peak it.
Yeah.
We used to be all down here. When we were little boys,
I want you to
we were
feel
little
it.
girls. Boys were girls, right?
Mhm.
So we start growing to get testosterone. Be this fucking man. Be a monster.
Mhm.
It's okay. And I'm big on this too because, we're supposed to be providers and protectors. You have to be a monster. You have to be dangerous, right? Listen, there's nothing that I wouldn't do to somebody to protect my loved ones. I feel no way. I've already been there, right? And men should have that kind of cloth because there's guys that don't give a fuck about you that will do everything to you or your family if you allow them. And forbid we are ever in that situation, but we want to be confident to where we're not even worried about it. It's kind of silly of me. I'd be like, I wish somebody would try. I know that's not smart, but I'm so overly protective and aggressive in that space. I'm like, try it,
Yeah.
please,
I like
please.
it. I
You
like
feel
it.
me? Like, and I think all men like it. That's our nature, right? But some men feel so inadequate because they're so far behind. They act like they hate it, right? I had people like just. I'm a target, so people always bothering me or trying to thinking they bothering me. And there was an incident when I had to like really come at somebody like, I will fucking hurt you if you keep bothering me. Mike Rashid's threatening me, and then people like, how could you? I'm like, first of all, if I threaten somebody, I'm really going to do it, right? I'm all right with that, right? Second of all, you going to let people play with your name like that? Like you wouldn't look. It's all right to ignore things. That's fine too. But I'm just a direct person. If I have an issue with a person, an outstanding issue, I come to them and deal with it. But we live in a world where you come to them and deal with it, and they take it and like, hey guys, look at what Mike Rashid said to me. You know what I'm saying? It's pathetic. And what's even more pathetic is people will rock with that. I lost respect for you. You're cool. You don't like men? Get out of here then. It's not for you. But it's okay. Like these people, It seemed like it's a lot of that. I don't know if it is or not. It just seems kind of big because it's so bizarre to me. It really is really loud to me. But I feel no ways about nothing that I do.
Yeah,
You
but
know?
you're willing to step into the ring. You're willing to step into the arena, and everybody should be. They are not confident in their ability to step into the arena. I don't know why you're playing the game then. This is the game of
Yeah.
life. Why are you playing the game if you're not willing to step into the arena? It's crazy.
Teddy Roosevelt. You remember that speech
Right,
he did?
right,
The man in
absolutely.
the arena.
Yep.
That was a real man. That's a man.
Yep, and you will be ridiculed. You will be discredited. They will talk shit.
Like people on the sideline not doing anything.
Right.
Exactly.
I love this anime called One Piece, and there's a
Right.
fight where the people on the sideline, they're weak, they can't stand up. There's just like a moment that reminds me of the spiritual conversation around this. Like your friend, a seeker, and doing all that biohacking and things like that. That's really great, but does not exercise. There's when I am challenged in this thought process around to me, I mean, but somebody that believes differently than me will say, well, I'm coming from a privileged position because I'm privileged because I'm already a fit person, so that's my privilege, and that's why I think like that. Okay, you could try to make that argument, but then when I get into the spiritual discourse, it's interesting. Are you familiar with a book called A Course in Miracles?
Oh, sir.
This is like one of these kind of like new age spiritual texts. Another good one is Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes. A Course in Miracles doesn't really have a particular author. Marianne Williamson, she's a big teacher of that, and she's been candidacy for president. She ran for president, but very like big into politics. But she's spiritual too, and wants to bring a spiritual bend into everything. And A Course in Miracles have dived into some of this, and there's been this discourse around, well, a spiritual person. It's just like the dogmatic religious traditions. They are often down crediting the body. They're speaking of the vessel as something to be sick of and rid of, and it's punishment to live here. And so don't do anything for that physical vessel. It is more it's like it's more spiritual to sit inside of a mountain and meditate and not even eat or nourish that body at all. I like the discipline of fasting, but I can't live an ascetic lifestyle. I want to experience all of the emotions, laughter and sadness and anger and veracity, and be a monster and be controlled and be disciplined and be happy and kind and serving and all of those things. I want to experience all of it in this. We live in a really cool modern world where we can be virtually having a podcast about spiritual conversations and making it practical and inspiring others. I don't want to live outside of that. I want to be actualized inside of it. I want to be enlightened inside of it. I think that
Amen.
is where, the average person begins to become realized, maybe a deity at some level.
This is where you're so important, right? Because you're an embodiment of that.
Absolutely.
You are spiritually grounded. You are very intelligent. You have a PhD. That's so hard, right? And you're fit and in shape and full of life. You're vibrant, right? So you can see a person's virility in their face, how they speak, right? You're full of it. So, you're projecting that to your community without even saying it. They're watching, they're looking at you. So this is what we need to do. We need people like you and more people like you to continue doing the good work, because this is all the good work. And this is like the evolution of things of this nature of spirituality. A person that I really like is, are you familiar with Osho, the Bhagwan?
Osho's great.
Right. And
Osho
he's
is so dope.
a smart guy, right? So
Yeah.
he was about, his criticism of the East was all meditation and spirituality, a rejection of physical, of material things. And his criticism of the West was all material, no a rejection of things of a spiritual nature. He said, no, we bring that together, and that's what it's about.
Together.
That's what it's about. We live in a real world. We live in a material. We're material beings. What are we talking about? But it's all connected.
And
Our mind, body. It's just, well, what's up the mind? Like the mind is the body. It's the body. It's literally, unless yours is local somewhere else. No, it's right here. So we have to fortify this vessel. And here's the thing too. This is why I like to deal with things of a practical and a scientific nature. Training the body creates new neurons. It makes us smarter, right? It extends our life, right? It does so many things. So, and then here's another thing too. We are babies in wisdom and information. They're finding out things now that they had no idea. They're listen, you're going to be hearing about this in the next sometime soon. How it's possible they're finding out that different organs, we thought our brains is the only thing that has memory. But there's some information out there, and some cases, some real actual cases of people having implants, right? One in particular I'm thinking about is a heart implant that this woman got. Everything went fine. When she did her checkup, she was like, I get these real bad headaches every night, like around the same time every night. All right, you look fine. Let me know if it persists. It persists. Come in again. Everything looks fine. She's like, no, do more tests on me. Something's wrong. Everything looks fine. She keeps complaining. They did a psychic evaluation, everything. You're normal. Like, we don't get it. So the doctor finally went and looked at the donor's chart. This particular donor died, gunshot to the head, 9 p.m. at night. That heart took a timestamp of that event, and it kept reminding her or signaling her, like, damn, there's pain here at the same time every night. So there's so much that we don't even know yet, right? So much that the body is capable of that benefits the mind and vice versa. So, to abandon or to not deal with things of a physical nature and fortify our bodies is a great sin to ourselves. It's a sin to our children. It's a sin to our significant others. Because listen, you marry somebody, you should be attractive to them and they should be to you, right? So work on that. To me, in a relationship is about this. Both two halves to come together as a whole, but each half should be whole in itself, right? And then we both fortify ourselves and constantly try to renew ourselves mentally. Just read here and there, whatever, try to learn new things. Physically, work out, train so we could be healthy for each other, keep looking good, renewing ourselves in that way. Spiritually, just trying to be a better person all the time, right? When you're doing those things, you're never getting bored with each other, right? You're loving each other more because it's not a static. A lot of people get into a situation and then boom, I did it, so I'm good. And they have kids, they don't let themselves go. No, you got to be inspiring to your kids too. You got to look. When my kids were small and I go to the school for like the lunch, all eyes was on us. Daddy daughter dance, all eyes was on us, right? That gives our kids a lot of confidence and a higher standard of living. I don't beat my son in the head about training, but he's on it. He's with or without me, you know? So training, sauna, the whole nine, nutrition, all of that. And I've never been like, you guys got to do this. It's the example. That's the best way to lead is by doing.
Yeah.
Because it's real.
If you're not investing in your physical vessel, then you are doing a disservice to that epigenetic lineage. And this is science. The epigenetics is there. I love the story of the heart. My father, he passed away on a motorcycle accident and his heart was transplanted to somebody. And I always wanted to meet that guy because there is something to that experience of like, he holds the heart that my father once had in his body.
Yeah.
It's very cool. And then what you said about Osho is so awesome. When I went to a transpersonal conference, there's a European section of transpersonal psychology. So this was in Italy, and maybe 40, 50 countries are represented at this transpersonal conference, all on these spiritual conversations and topics. And it's really fascinating, scholars and things like this. And I remember one of the evenings we're dancing, we're partying, we're having a good time. I remember looking around like, damn, some of these old guys have been doing this for since the 70s, some of these were like fairly old people, but they're still, jamming to the music and stuff. And I asked this one guy, I said, wow, he has this like good swagger. He's always wearing a scarf. And I'm like, you've been doing this for a long time, huh? And he said, this is nothing compared to the Osho parties. I was like, man, that's what I'm saying. I want to be partying with Osho. I want to be with my gang. That we're all, spiritual seekers and at a high level of actualized being in the world. And let's just party with Osho,
Yeah. One thing about have you saw that documentary Wild Wild Country? I think it's called. It was about him and his commune and whatnot. But the people that spoke on his behalf, they were like lawyers. They were intelligent, well-to-do people. It just shows you, like, because you know that it was. You should watch that documentary. It's really fascinating. It's kind of upsetting a little bit how this community in Oregon just tried to go to war with them. They're minding their business. Like, these people are weird. So what? You're weird. But anyway, but you see the type of people that his followers were. They were dope people. These are the type of people that you want to be around. Smart people, you know? And it kind of dispels this myth of like a hippie or this new age spiritual. No, these were professionals. Very intelligent, very well put together, very well spoken, right? It's interesting to watch.
I'll check that out for
It's
sure.
a really good, it's really good, bro. It's fire.
But I love what you said, that it's the bringing together. Another way to describe transpersonal psychology has been Eastern wisdom meets Western science. You know some of the names that have been famous in that have been valuable a part of transpersonal psychology. Viktor Frankl wrote Man's Search for Meaning. Alan Watts was an early editor of the Journal of Transpersonal Psychology. Ram Dass, there's a book on my shelf here that's called The Only Dance There Is. He donated all of the royalties of that book to the Journal of Transpersonal Psychology, so that helped get it going. Abraham Maslow is a famous psychologist at the beginning of it. Stanislav Grof is a famous name as well, but it is the bringing together of the things. And even scholars, even in my field, I'm a strange academic, because my history is not a traditional person going through academia, and I'm fairly young to be a PhD. And then it like my history is like selling drugs and getting arrested and this background, and then moving across the country to California to kind of get away from this. I was going to be in and out of jail for the rest of my life. But it is, I like all of that. All of that has made me better. And so it's the bringing together of these things. And you do that so well. You bring together the adversity of your own experience into your teachings and embodiment in the ways that you are in the world, and that is inspiring so many people, and your journey inspires me too. So thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate it. So this product that you have right here,
Yes,
Hydroglyph,
sir.
that's
Yes,
from your company Ambrosia, the Ambrosia Collective. Can you
correct.
tell us about that?
Yeah, Hydroglyph is a fantastic formula. It's literally, and I say this is an objective truth. It's the best hydration formula there is. Ours is actual electrolytes, right? Coconut juice powder, GMB. That is an ingredient that preserves muscle and it protects you from muscle breakdown when you're in fasted states or at a caloric deficit. And also branched chain amino acids that's fortified from sunflowers. It's important because pretty much all branched chain amino acids, if it's not a plant-based source, is sourced from the beaks and feathers of birds, right? Which, whatever, it's just whatever. But this is fortified for sunflower. So that, in essence, it does increase your what's called the protein muscle synthesis. So it increases one's body, your ability to convert protein to muscle, to shuttle that nutrition in the way that it's supposed to go. But what accelerates all of that is fasting does that as well, right? When we're in a fasted state, we can convert protein into muscle a lot better when we do ingest it because our body's like, finally, thank you. I'm going to take this and utilize this for as much good as possible because I don't know where I'm going to get it again. So it's kind of like tricking the body to a degree. So once again, like I said earlier, we create ourselves, you know? We have our conscious and our subconscious mind. The subconscious mind does all the work, but the conscious mind tells it what to do. The subconscious mind doesn't have an intelligence. It just has a high work rate, a high work capacity, kind of like AI. AI is not smart, but it works his ass off if we control it and we direct it properly. So consciously, we have to direct ourselves properly by putting the right things in our body, by employing the right strategies of fortifying our bodies and our minds. And then the subconscious or the AI side of us will do all of the rest.
Yeah. Absolutely. The unconscious doesn't even know the world the way that we know the world. It only knows you. It's like it
Yeah,
only knows Mike. It's like it's so limited because it only knows Travis. Like it doesn't know anything else. And it needs to be cared for and fed because it is doing all of that work. And I just love the way that you have been creating these products, the protein planta, the way that you've been creating these products has just been so clearly informed by your spiritual development, your actualization. And maybe, like you said, maybe people will buy that book, the Quintessence. Maybe they'll buy that book because they like you, but they are attracted to the authentic divine expression that is channeled through you. And I think that's an amazing thing. And then on the other side of that, you're only going to create a good, like how could you create anything that is not a good product?
yeah, that's a fact. Creating something good or not is just all with intelligence. It's like you're smart enough to not do something stupid. Listen, here it takes we have our war room, our conference room. Whatever idea, we bring it in there and we start poking holes in it. Like, nah, that's stupid. And we talk back like that, right? To fortify it and ready it up. So when we do bring something to the market, it's like, I can't wait for them to talk shit about this. Because we got the artillery and we're backed up by science. And we do a lot of third party testing and independent testing. So we're so fortified with our data, with our information. Everything has a scan on it. You can check the batch that it came from, right? Our label claims are legit, no banned substances, and we use patented ingredients. We can cut corners, right, and increase our margin, but we just don't. It's no reason for that. We're not money hungry people. I personally don't move in regards to money at all. I'm fortunate enough to make money, so that's not a thing for me. And people can say, "Whoa, you already got it?" Yep, I got it. And I've never moved in that way. I've never been money hungry. I move in a way of being good at what I do. When you do that, the money comes. You help people, they pay you. They compensate you for helping them. It's that simple.
It's interesting that you really value being an author. That's like one of your three things on your Instagram bio was author, that middle thing, and I thought that's really cool. So it's like in this interest of spiritual development and articulation, we're interested in the pointing in the direction maybe. And Jeffrey Martin uses a term called non symbolic experience. So, enlightenment is persistent non symbolic experience. And there are kind of levels to that. Even you can become enlightened, and then there can still be a continuum of what he calls locations. So there's like different levels of location in this persisting non-symbolic experience. Oh, and man, I love a good acronym. His acronym for this is ONE, ongoing non-symbolic experience. That's like perfect.
Ongoing non-symbolic experience.
Yeah, ONE.
Right? It's
ONE.
you gotta like turn it this way and look at it this way for it to be one, but I get it. I
Yeah,
get
but
it.
it's still
Made it work.
tight. Like it's a tight acronym. Like how dare he take that awesome acronym? And then for a public audience, he just calls it fundamental well-being. And so he put like $2 million into this research. He developed a course called the Finders Course. It's interesting, but my criticism and some other scholars too. One person on my dissertation committee, her and I sat in a talk with Jeffrey Martin, and my criticism is that the non-symbolic experience that he's referring to is the nothingness. He's speaking about the nothingness, the experience of the nothingness. That is the most symbolic thing. It is the nothingness is the prima materia of everything that emerges from it. It is the nothing, all ideas and everything, all of our narrative and all that emerges from the nothingness. So our relating to that, but being able to bring that into the world, I think that's at least like an initiatory experience of enlightenment. I call it transegoic gnosis.
Interesting. So when you look at the nothing, right, or void, what most I guess most things and most definitions and terminologies is for the macro, right? For the general public. But there really is no such thing as a nothing. It doesn't exist, right?
It
Just
yeah.
let's say like space, right? It's not a pure vacuum, you know. There's all right, so we could talk about five elements. Like I named my book The Quintessence, right?
Mhm.
It's like that's the fifth element that's kind of like hanging out there, like, hey, give me some attention. And it gets is back in the public domain as far as in academia discussions, because now they're saying dark matter, right? But nonetheless, every period of time, we've always had this fifth element and it being like the glue that the fabric of everything, right? I haven't landed on this yet, but I've been toiling around with like maybe that's the physical manifestation of God, of the all-seeing God, right? Because God is just a word, you understand? And people's perception of God is created by some dudes, somebody, right? You know, people have this woo-woo esoterical type of can't really explain what this supreme being is when we're all supreme being, we're all connected, we're all one, right? Literally. And that's what's crazy to me, bro. So there's a story. Are you familiar with this story? It's a Buddhist story. I only know that this is a Buddhist story because I studied Buddhism. And then when I heard this story, I'm like, that sounds like Buddhism. What is it called? But they don't connect it.
Siddhartha or
No, it has a very regular name. Damn it. But anyway, it's gonna come to me, but it gives this breakdown of like how life is, right? And it says like basically the Buddhists believe that in reincarnation, right? They don't believe in a pure death. So they believe that most people are on the same level of consciousness. You die or sleep, you come back where you left off to continue your journey. And once you've reached that level of enlightenment, if you will, or ascension, your next life is a star, like a physical star, like a sun. And it's interesting because a sun or a star has a life like a human, just way longer, right? So that story says in that quest of one gaining that higher level of consciousness or evolving or ascending, you will be me and I will be you or this person. You will be a girl, you will be a rich man, you will be a handicapped person. Every life will be every life for us to ascend, right? And when you think about that, it's like, look, I know this story well, but I get chills every time I think about it because it's like, yo, treat people good.
Mhm.
Be nice to people. Even if it's a made up story, it's a hell of a strategy on how we should live our lives.
Yeah.
Dealing with people how we would like to be dealt with. It's such a simple concept. It's so simple, right? But we just don't do unto others like you would want them to do unto you. We don't do it.
Yeah.
No, which is really, really frustrating. But I understand to a degree why. Like when you look at human nature, we're animals, you know? But we're a little bit better because we have this high degree of consciousness, this robust cerebral cortex. So, you know, we have empathy, language, we can coordinate things, so on and so forth. We have, you know, if you look at I rate humans very high. A lot of people hate people. I think people are incredible.
Humans
Incredible.
is just at the top of the chain. I'm with it.
You
I'm
feel
team
me? Like
human.
all these billions of species that have been here, that are here, but we're the only ones that create. We live novelty now. There's no more survival. They survive, right? We talk about these things that we're talking about now. They don't even realize they're going to die. With great power comes great responsibility. And that responsibility, how I see the trajectory of our society here in America, we're squandering it. So last week I spoke about the metaphysical bank. We are just withdrawing like it's infinite, literally and figuratively, and we're in debt, huge debt. Literally, our country's in debt, huge debt. But the actions and the things that we're doing, how we're moving through the world, we're in debt and spiritual debt, you know? And I'm like, yo, nobody's concerned. And this is what's interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine. She recently did she's from Cape Verde, right? That's a part of Africa. Many people haven't heard about it. It's real beautiful there. But she did a like ayahuasca and she's been going on her spiritual journey. And then people are like coming at her like, what are you doing? Witchcraft? And she was like defending herself. I said, hold on. There's nothing wrong with witchcraft. Witchcraft is a word, right? But those people were healers, right? You know, the colonizers that came in, they called them witches. They made it scary. They made it bad. But there's no black magic. That doesn't exist, right? These people knew the earth. They would conjure up things to heal. They would practice on themselves. They try give it to you, give it to that. Those were the first physicians, right? So it's like we're so far removed. So back then, a king or a ruler had a magician or his healers. He had his sages. He had his oracles, right? They had their military advisors, their strategic advisors, and all of that was in his cabinet, not just the financial guys and the war guys. That's all we have now, right? So, and Trump has, listen, brother, you're the guy. You're the guy. So be a little bit different. Put a real advisory board together that's going to keep you spiritually aligned and tapped in, right? Let's make moves. We can like change the trajectory of this world, America. But what we're doing, we're at risk of our empire collapsing because of how we're moving. And they're not looking into that. They're so short sighted, which is so strange because I know they're smart. Mm-hmm. But here's the problem, they're so like fortified with money and power. There's nothing of a spiritual nature is even penetrating, not even close. So, you know, they need spiritual advisors, like for real. And people should stop looking at that as some weird mystical thing. Part of the reason, like I was writing my book or the direction of my book was to normalize spirituality, to show it's practical. Like I ruffled some feathers a few months back when I'm gonna say bold things to get the conversation started, but I was like, look, working out every day is more important than you praying, right? The prayer is just one little thing. Training and taking care of yourself is prayer in action, it's meditation in action. And taking care of yourself, training is an act of spirituality. That's something of a spiritual nature. Loving yourself properly. I'm big on that. I'm so big on that. It's unfortunate, man. A powerful nation, a great nation, not a good nation, but a great nation, could be good, but won't be good. We have the power to be good, to be really good. Yeah. This won't happen. So that leads, I'm gonna ask you this, Travis. Yeah. So what do you think? So if you look at the history, the known history of the world, right? Just what we know. War and conquest, the greatest perpetrators of war and conquest, they're good. They're good. So what's life really about? Do everybody got it wrong with the peace and the love and all of that stuff? Because it looks like to me, a logical person that, look, and I am so far removed from ideologies and what I think is right or whatever, but I'm really sitting here thinking like, yo, what should I move treacherously? Like, is that more beneficial? Does that get me, you know? Yeah. So what do you think about that?
Well, let me respond to this by speaking to the political administration. So you were saying that they need spiritual guidance. They need spiritual counsel as a part of the leadership of their administration. That is, they need the other piece of the puzzle. They need the other piece of the dualistic nature. They're operating in one side. As this podcast, my last name is Gray. So this integration of both, that I think is the purpose, the integration, the both and. There's a funny thing about the Bible. There's never a joke. There's never laughter. Nobody is in laughter throughout the Bible. I love laughter. I love comedy. I love to enjoy myself. How is that in such an incredible spiritual text? How is that somehow missing? In Buddhism there is no crying, so it's more about the detachment, and there's no like grievance. To sit in the grievance experience is the limitation that you're trying to get rid of in your quest for an enlightened state of consciousness. And I was like, wow, look at that. Why is each of these spiritual traditions, why must they miss one emotion? In Islamic tradition, I would say that Muhammad, he is saying to Jesus, showed us, he said, I am the son of God. So you can adopt that. No one actually told you that you can't do that except for some dogmatic ideological tradition. Buddha said that this is all an interconnected experience, and Muhammad said, God sang to me. So you can know it to be true that God is singing to you, through you, as you. Move accordingly, move into the world accordingly. And so, really love everything that you offer. Is there anywhere that you would like to direct people?
Listen, I'm very passionate about my authorship. I have another book already ready to go. I got a couple actually, and I'm also I did submit article I wrote to Cambridge for scholarly review, for academic review, but I got rejected. I guess my affiliations wasn't really rocking with. So a friend of mine who's somewhat of an advisor, he's a PhD as well. He was like, Mike, you got a name. Do it, just put it on your own site, your blog. I'm like, okay. Well, my blog site will be up probably in about a week or so, where I'll be putting all I write a lot. You have no idea. So I have an idea and I just explore it. That's what I do in my spare time. So I will have a site in which will be a lot of blogs, but I'm also going to be accepting blogs from other people as well, other papers and articles and things like that from other people. Just brilliant minds, just curating good information so it's out there for people for free. You don't pay nothing, not asking for anything. So this is like a little passion thing that I want to do. And also, I live my life predicated on the fact that I'm going to leave here at some point. So I'm leaving things behind. As simple as that.
Yeah, that's great. I love that you're doing that. That's cool that you submitted to a Cambridge journal. Being denied is a part of the process also. So if you really did want that to be in an academic journal, I would encourage you to just keep submitting it to whatever, or taking into account whatever kind of critiques they are giving you. But that's great that you're putting out a blog, putting that out there. I love all the things that you're doing. I'm so stoked to have this conversation with you, and I just want to end it with just a yogic Sanskrit term of Namaste, because the God within me recognizes the God within you.
I appreciate that. Now we just say peace, God.
Yeah, peace.
Peace to the gods.
Peace to the
Now I
gods.
appreciate you, brother.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
You're thinking, who is this man talking? I'm talking to you. You are the realest one you know. And if you need a real